I'm now going to read through pages 98 and 99. As I do so, follow the words on your photocopy with your finger. Throughout, I will ask you to give the meanings of key words, or to underline certain bits. You should do this on your photocopy. Queen Elizabeth I, a church for everyone. Mary gained the nickname Bloody Mary because of her persecution of the Protestants during her reign. This is probably very unfair. She was cruel by modern standards, but so were other rulers. Henry VIII was always executing people for disagreeing with him. Mary's half-sister, Elizabeth, could be very cruel too. She persecuted both Catholics and some Protestants. She executed many people during her reign. I would like you to go through and underline the last sentence we have read. Queen Elizabeth was a Protestant, but she wanted to bring peace and order to the land after all the bloodshed and hatred. She thought that the best way to do this was to find a church with which everyone would be happy. In 1559, she created a Protestant church. Once again, there was an English prayer book. Once again, there was an English Bible. Soon, there was a Welsh prayer book and a Welsh Bible too. However, this was a much gentler kind of Protestantism than Edward's. Elizabeth did not like the extreme ideas of John Calvin. She preferred the more moderate Protestantism of Luther. She wanted a Protestantism which was still very similar to the Catholic Church. Elizabeth was trying to find a middle way. The trouble was that this made her all the more angry with anyone who tried to spoil her middle way. If you look at the picture, Puritans wanted the church to be even more Protestant. Elizabeth would not listen to them. Roman Catholics wanted to worship freely. Elizabeth controlled and sometimes persecuted them. Puritans. Extreme Protestants, or Puritans, caused more and more problems for Elizabeth. She started to get very tough on them during the 1580s. Puritans believed that ordinary people could get in touch with God by reading the Bible and leading a pure, simple life. They believed that priests had too much power. The Puritans thought that churches should not be run by bishops appointed by the monarch, but by ministers elected by church members. Before we continue, next to Puritans at the top of the page, write the definition of them as extreme Protestants. Puritans disapproved of playing sports and games. They did not like music in church services. Many of them followed the ideas of John Calvin of Geneva. There are all sorts of stories about Calvin's strict rules in Geneva. It was said that children were beaten if they were caught eating cakes on Sundays. Here is a woodcut of a Puritan family during the time of Elizabeth. On your copy of the picture, highlight how you know that these are Puritans. Pause now and restart when you've done this. Puritans were free to get on with their lives, but if they spoke out, Elizabeth could be very harsh. Underline this sentence. She had a lot of trouble with Puritans in Parliament, who tried to tell her that the church was not Protestant enough. This made her unbelievably angry. For Elizabeth, the whole point was to find a church to which everyone could belong. In 1583, she took action against a Puritan who wrote a book which she did not like. This account was written shortly after her reign in 1615 by someone who witnessed the event. From this time on, Elizabeth became a little more angry with the Puritans. John Stubbs was sentenced to have his right hand cut off with cleaver. Draw an arrow to the word cleaver, and right next to it, meat cleaver. A large bladed item used by butchers to cut through meat. Driven through the wrist with the force of a mallet. The word driven here doesn't mean like in a car, it means pushed through. Upon a scaffold in the marketplace at Westminster. I remember, being present at the time, that Stubbs, after his right hand was cut off, took off his hat with his left hand and said with a loud voice, "God save the Queen."